Hello my friends and welcome to the battle for Lindon, where the Elves of the Grey Havens have sallied forth to defend the Gulf of Lune from almost 10,000 Gundabad Orcs, Trolls, Wargs, and Black Numenoreans. This is 3rd Age Reforged, a Lord of the Rings mod with a multiplayer focus I'm sure most of you have heard of before, and I apologize, it's been so long since last we played this mod together. I will definitely be working in some more 3rd Age content in the near future, but Lindon is a new faction in Reforged. Some of you might have run into them in Divide and Conquer before, but in terms of aesthetics and playstyle, they're a bit different than the Elves of Imladris or the Woodland Realms. A bit lower in armor and less bruising in a melee fight compared to Imladris, Lindon is more focused on versatility, and they have a heavy focus on pikes, great cavalry, and javelin troops, basically marine hybrids that can slaughter high-value units like trolls if they're given time to throw. This battle's from the 0.95 beta, a patch that will be completely overhauling balance in ways too numerous to count, but combat stats are definitely being brought more in line with Vanilla Medieval 2, and I think a lot of you are really going to like the changes. So the Elves of Lindon have taken a defensive position on the rolling coastline on the Gulf of Lune, pikes and stakes ready to blunt the maniacal charge of Angmar, with ranks of armor-piercing archers, javelin troops, and horse archers that will be much needed to thin out the swarms currently encroaching on their position. Things are very, very dangerous for the Noldor and Teleri defending their homeland here, because the Orcs of Gundabad number almost 10,000 strong, and they can straight up stomp Lindon Elves in a pure melee engagement. There's almost no real fodder on the field. These are heavily armored and blooded veterans of the Witch Realm, anchored by Iron-shod Trolls, Black Watch Legion, Hammer Guard, and the Inquisitors of the Black Captain himself, the Black Numenoreans. Now remember, this isn't like 3rd Age 3.2 where the Eldar can just walk through any enemy they face. As amazing as that mod is, I think we can all agree it's not the most balanced for multiplayer because its focus is on the campaign, obviously, and that often left factions like Mordor and the Orcs of the Misty Mountains in the dust in terms of head-to-head faction power. So the Elves will need some very good skirmishing and cavalry usage if they want to defeat the Black Legions of Gundabad in open battle, because their ability to rush and overwhelm you in a melee fight can be very potent if you're not careful or prepared. So, I am anchoring the right flanks of the Noldor and Teleri, and my horse archers have begun skirmishing down the Black Watch Legion, who have an amazing shield missile block chance, which I didn't realize right off the start, but I quickly asked him, the Dark Cloud, who should I be shooting at? He told me the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, so I'll be trying to take them off the field early on, switch targets very soon, and just get some skirmishing and some kills early on before the Orcs of Gundabad are able to close into melee. And these opening moments of the battle are really important. I need to kill as many as I possibly can before this unyielding tide smacks me right in the mouth. And you can see Cannon Fodder is having none of it. No long, slow march for his orcs here. He's going right for it. Realizes that the longer it takes for him to get into melee, the more he will lose to my armor-piercing arrows. So just go right for it. His Black Numenoreans have sallied forth and are sprinting head-on towards the archers. And this is Medieval 2. Not the most responsive Total War game of all time, let's be honest. The micro can get a little bit annoying, and they're slow on the uptake, slow to get away, and I will lose a few models here as I try to sprint away from these very angry Witch Realm Inquisitors. But I'll still get some shots off, not actually lose too many here, but yeah, just run away, continue skirmishing. They do have Parthian shots, so I'll be able to fire as I pull away from that engagement. But yeah, you can see Cannon Fodder just in a full-on sprint here, going right for my lines, looking to get into melee, looking to completely overwhelm me as the Witch Realm Pikemen, Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, and a bunch of the Hammer Guard look to close in. But you can see here, there's a gigantic gap between him and the army on his right flank. They aren't under any pressure from arrow fire, so it looks like they aren't in any real hurry. But that does mean that the right flank of Cannon Fodder will be kind of exposed and isolated. So it's something we might seek to exploit, as the Inquisitors actually turn around, try to get a rear charge into the back of the pikemen, which could work really well. They have very low armor, but the cavalry is all shifted out to the left flank of Cannon Fodder, trying to get around behind, maybe get into the archers. They're taking some javelin shots right now and have definitely lost some of their cavalry, but the entire army ready to slam headfirst into the pikes as Synn the Dark Cloud has sent some of his cavalry forward and slaughtered some orc fellers off the charge, killed about half a unit in a single charge there with his Mythalon Lancers, and another charge here coming into the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, eviscerating that formation, taking down about half of them, ready to pull out again. And trust me, by the way, I promise you, if you think you know how this battle is going to end based on the opening moves, you don't. Trust me on that. It was a pretty crazy ending. That's all I'll say. I, of course, don't want to spoil it. So Mythalon Pikemen and Lindon Pikemen holding the line here as the inexorable tide of orcs of Angmar push through, slam into the front lines, and a bunch of the Black Watch Legion trying to get around the flank into the squishy stuff in the rear to deal with the javelins and some of the archers there. Of course, elven archers and javelin troops can still defend themselves in melee. Like I said, their jav troops are very hybrid oriented. They can deal well in melee, they can deal well from range, but they're certainly less powerful up close compared to something like the Blade Masters of Lune or something like that. Meanwhile, got some of my Sword Masters moving up now, trying to help anchor the line as my pikemen are being quickly overwhelmed here. The Witch Realm pikemen moving up, and yeah, those Mithlond Lancers from Synn are helping me out so much right now. They've actually forced Angmar to worry about their rear, which they weren't really expecting to this early on in the game. And it looks like J-Monster has pushed up on his flank, and Karandal ready to receive the charge with his stakes and pikes ready to skewer some orcs and trolls before they have a chance to make a big impact on the battle. That's an epic sight right there, man, as snow trolls lumber into view and unleash their devastating shock tactics into the pike elves, breaking up their pointy formation like monstrous Zweihanders out of some bad dream. Talking about shock and awe, losing about a third of your unit in 2 seconds or so, pancaked into the ground by troll clubs, and that should clear a path for the Dark Legions, following up closely behind. Blade Masters looking to close in as well, hopefully tie them down while the javelins fire in. Meanwhile, very brutal fight happening on the other side of the battlefield. Remnants of the Witch Realm Inquisitors being torn apart by range fire and by the Mithlond Lancers who have managed to get some rear charges into them. Wargs are actually great against Elven Cavalry. They do have the armor-piercing trait. They're fantastic against horses, but not when you're completely surrounded and charged from Lancers from behind. Meanwhile, the Trolls are still alive. They are bloodied. You can see them covered with crimson. But they're taking some jav shots to the face and looking to move, because if they stick around there too long, all that javelin focus fire will certainly bring them down very quickly. Some of the Black Watch Legion have found a way to get around in and behind the Elves here, but there's a long line of javelin and archer fire coming in that will really help turn the tide if they're able to focus fire down the important targets. And it honestly does seem like there was some miscommunication between Starling, who controls the middle army for Angmar, and Cannon Fodder, who was positioned on the left. I think Starling should have helped support Cannon Fodder's rush, at least with some cavalry, maybe some Warg Riders. And this is the difference between good teamwork and bad teamwork. Synn sent me cavalry to help hammer the back lines as one of their, Cannon Fodder General goes down here. And those hammer and anvils paid some pretty massive dividends for me, while Angmar's leftmost army is struggling mightily at the moment. The impetus of their attack completely stuffed and now being torn apart by ranged fire. But with that said, though, Karandal, who's holding down the left flank of the Elves, is definitely struggling. These Black Watch Legion and the Witch Realm Inquisitors and the Witch Realm Hammer Guard have pushed through and are completely swarming him, enveloping him, overwhelming him, pushing past the stakes, and destroying these pikes and swordsmen who have now been forced to be committed to melee. And with the trolls just now being committed, with the support from the rest of these melee troops, I think these pikemen will have a very tough time holding the line here. So it seems like a tale of two battles right now. While Karandal is kind of struggling at the moment, the other side of the battle is going much better for the Elves. But he does have some Lindon Marines supporting him, some archer fire coming in that have a lot of stakes that'll block cavalry charges. At the very least, Wargs and those Witch Realm Inquisitors will have a tough time getting in at the important targets. But these javelins are isolated, they can be charged, and now they have been. But with that said, though, that cavalry is exposing their flanks to a lot of range fire. Some javelins getting some good shots in, lots of puffs of blood going up, and that means that they are taking some damage there. Synn has not been engaged yet. He has moved up slowly, but he actually has a pretty good reason. He has 2 or 3 goblin trackers, which, with the lower armor of these elves, are actually quite good at skirmishing them down. You can see these pikes have taken a lot of casualties from that skirmish fire, so it makes some sense to sit back and whittle down the elven pikes and some of the skirmish units before closing into melee. Yes, goblin trackers will lose a skirmish fight to some of the elven archers, but right now they're positioned so they can fire from further away, and the elven archers haven't moved up to deal with them quite yet. Pikes on my side moving deeper into the enemy formations, and about even numbers in terms of Angmar and the Elves now, which means the Elves will definitely have the advantage. The number advantage for Cannon Fodder on this side of the battlefield has been cut in half, and basically he no longer has that numerical superiority, which means all this elven fire will be too much for him to handle, and he's definitely on the back foot. But the huge charge from Starling coming in now, and you can see in the center, the pikes have taken so many losses, that entire formation will crumble almost on impact from these Witch Realm Scourge Raiders. He won't be able to fight for very long at all, and that's going to be a big deal for Synn. That means that in the middle of his army, there will be a big gap that can get punched through by a bunch of very angry Angmar troops. Orcs and trolls will be able to push through that pretty easily. And the pike line is only as good as its weakest link. And so if there's a weak link in this pike line, that does mean that the entire thing could just crumble and get surrounded in seconds. So we'll see what happens there, but might not be so good for Synn. I think that Goblin Tracker skirmishing was very, very nice. Now, the Wardens of Carib Aaron are dealing with some of these Orc fellers, and they will be quite good in melee. I believe they are Rangers, or a Ranger-type unit, which means they have the Penetration special trait, which gives them the ability to kill, I believe, more than one model in a single shot, which is pretty awesome. Not 100% sure about these guys, but they have the Ranger model, so they're pretty badass. Look at them in that all-white. I think they look really cool. I'm not sure what the lore is behind them, actually. If someone knows what they are about, I would love to know. But the pikes have moved up now and are beginning to stab, viciously stab, and disembowel everything they've closed into melee with. And these Witch Realm Scourge Raiders will be side apart there. And Carindal is maybe stabilized, actually, on his side of the battlefield. He does have some troops left. See some wargs on the bottom left looking to hunt down and munch on pretty much anything they can get their hands on. Lindon archers taking a charge from the rear, but some cavalry sallying forth. They have to be very careful pulling out near those stakes. They could very easily skewer themselves on their own defensive fortifications. It could be pretty bad. You can lose an entire cav unit that way, and believe me, I've had my fair share of horrific stake experiences. My mommy always told me to take smaller bites so I don't choke on my steak, but she never told me not to slam my horses full speed into it, so I had to learn the hard way. And believe me, I have learned the hard way many times over. Lost entire units of paladins and fantastic cavalry units. It feels really bad, man. It's not a good way to go. So I have pretty much cleaned up my side of the battlefield. I've beaten back Cannon Fodder's army with the help of Synn's fantastic cavalry micro. He really got some great charges off, but that did mean that his cavalry was a little bit depleted. And now with the great skirmishing that Starling did against his army in the center, they kind of cut through the pikes there. That has left his line kind of in disarray, and Synn is being completely overwhelmed here. Those archers have done a ton of work, and they're actually getting some great shots into the elves in the back here. Are taking so many losses. They have low armor, so yeah, they're taking tons of casualties, and Synn really needs to pull them back and use their longer range to deal with those goblin trackers, because he's in range of them. I don't think he's even noticed it, honestly, and it's a big deal because he's losing a very high tier archer unit that has a ton of ammo, so not very good from that front. But the cavalry for Synn is charging from the flank, now finally dealing with the archers in the back lines. It'll be hard to cut through that many goblin trackers, though. I think he has like 3 units, and they're all like 250 or 300 entities in a unit, so pretty tough to cut through for sure. And in the meantime, they'll be doing a lot of damage. These Trolls of Gundabad dealing with these swordsmen, no trouble whatsoever, completely surrounded and overwhelmed by the Blackwatch Legion and the Witch Realm Blackguard, the bodyguard unit. And Synn seems to be on the back foot here. So even on the left flank of the Elves, in the middle, Elves are losing, and on the right flank, the Elves are winning. So we've got a very close battle right now. Finally, the Wargs from Starling are starting to make their move. This is not how you want to use Wargs, man. Directly into a pike wall. He was trying to get a charge off when I hadn't put the pikes down, which can work very well. It's a dangerous move. It can be fantastic. It can pay off huge dividends for you, because dealing with pikes is pretty tough. So if you manage to get a charge off when their pikes aren't down, the entire unit can go bye-bye, which is really fun. But he misjudged it, mistimed it, lost an entire warg unit there as archers fired in from the flank, and as my pikes dropped down in time. And this warg assault is not working well at all. It has been completely stuffed. Chariots and cavalry charging in from the flank, completely overwhelming them, cutting them to pieces, and that means that the cavalry advantage that the orcs might have had early on certainly isn't there anymore. I think probably the elves had the cav advantage, but it was close, because wargs match up very well against horses. In this case, wargs have kind of been mismanaged, and that is a problem for them, and the general actually for Starling goes down as well. But their infantry is still where their superiority lies, and they are crushing us in the infantry fight. They're crushing Synn. He has very few infantry units left, and we are going to have to use our cavalry very well if we want to take control of this battlefield. There are some Witch Realm Inquisitors who have been surrounded, and with the Mythical Lancers charging in now, they should be stabbed and cut down. And the Wardens of Lindon getting some good shots from the flank, some armor-piercing shots into the back, the unshielded sides of some of these units, And really what we want to take down now are the trolls. So if we can get them isolated, that would be really big for us. J-Monster does look like he's going to win on this side, but he won't have a ton left. Blackwatch Legion do seem to be numerous enough to deal with what's remaining of the Lindon Elves on this side of the battlefield. But yeah, it's like 3 units to 3 units. Both guys have beaten the crap out of each other. And actually, Carandul's general making his last stand here in the middle of a bunch of the Black Legion. Kind of a boss right now, but he goes down to the Hammer Guard, who are fantastic against cavalry with that armor piercing. And he was cut down. The general is dead, and it looks like Carandul will lose on that side. So pretty much everything will turn around the focal point of the center of this battlefield. Everything will collapse in, and whoever manages to out-micro the other, whoever has the remaining troops that will really make the bigger impact, will be the team that manages to win. But a chariot goes down here, and Synn's really, he just doesn't have much left at all. He's going to lose in the center for sure, and that means I'm going to have to support him with my cavalry and send in some of my marine units to start closing into melee because they are out of ammunition. So pulling my cavalry back, some of the trolls of Gundabad charging away from the main line, and that's a little bit of a risky proposition, right? You're talking about trolls that are really at their best when they're able to work in tandem with infantry, and that is what happens when you send trolls out by themselves. They can get charged by cavalry, and they were already very, very wounded. So let's be honest, they might not have made a big impact anyway, because they're already very hurt. They were already bloodied, taking a bunch of arrow and javelin fire. But yeah, these trolls out on their lonesome can basically just be charged with impunity and not get any of the support or the anti-cavalry presence that is really required for them to perform well. And so wounded, beleaguered, battered, and broken, I'm going to move all my cavalry into a position to charge in from multiple angles, and those poor trolls will just be sundered apart as I come in from multiple angles and throw them flying into the air, which I think is always hilarious because those trolls probably weigh like 2,500 pounds at the very least, probably more than that, especially with their armor and their weapons, and they just go flying into the air like they weigh like 50 pounds, like no big deal. Medieval 2 charge mechanics were a little bit funny, but yeah, I mean, completely overwhelmed them here. And they're dead. The trolls are dead. The trolls are off the field. Those shock troops are no longer going to be able to function for Gundabad. And that's a big win for us. But there's still so much infantry for the orcs here. And our infantry will not be able to beat them. I'm having to commit my marines, which are good in melee but not great. And my archers, which are decent but not great. And they're fighting dedicated, hardcore, heavily armored, high missile block chance, high armor infantry units. Like the Black Guard with their general, with that huge mace looking to close in. And what can we do to destroy them? Well, we have the cavalry, and that is our biggest advantage right now, as the balance board is actually shifting very heavily in the Orcs of Gundabad's favor. It will be down to these cavalry charges. It will be down to some good cavalry micro if we want any chance of winning this game. I'd honestly say that right now it's pretty even. I think the balance board is maybe a little bit misleading. I think it should be more close towards 50-50 than it is 60-40 in terms of where it is right now. But still, they have pikes on the field. They have some units like the Witch Realm Hammer Guard, which are great versus Cav. And I believe they still have a few trolls. They still have the Gundabad Guard right there, heavily armored spears. So yeah, they have the tools to deal with cavalry. If they're able to blunt the charges, tie them down, and finish them off, would be big for Angmar. And if they manage to kill our Cav, we're going to lose, for sure. And the thing about this patch, actually, is that cavalry is a little bit glassier than it was in previous patches. They can still be heavily armored. They're still great for cycle charging. I mean, at the end of the day, this is Medieval 2. Cavalry will always be the supreme ruler on the battlefield in this game. But with that said, they are squishier, and they will definitely die in prolonged melee. They'll die off the charge, actually, too. So you have to be more careful with your cavalry. We don't have the option of being careful right now. Our infantry is being completely overrun. We need these hammered animals if we want any chance of winning the game. You can see some of my cav charges. Yeah, we just lost a bunch of units right there. Actually, one of the Witch Realm Hammer Guard have waded into a bunch of the Harlingen archers and tying down that entire unit, which actually does have some ammunition left. So that's a big play right there. You think about it like, oh, it's only one guy. Yeah, he's not going to win. He dies here, stabbed in the back. But he just tied down an entire archer unit from firing for the last, like, 30 seconds or so. So that's a pretty big deal. More Witch Realm Hammer Guard moving up. Bloodied and battered. Not broken just yet. And the general for Synn, and I believe the general for Carandul is dead, but the general for Synn is still alive. Just a few remnants of Horse Lords rolling around, trying to make whatever impact on the battle they possibly can. And it's tough. It's tough going. I'm beginning to run out of ammunition on all the units that still had ammo, which was, at this point, very few. Again, shooting into the Blackwatch Legion, not ideal. They have a great missile block chance, but if I can flank around, firing from behind, that might be worth it. Get some good shots in on these Guardians of Karn Doom, who are pushing forward right now, looking to charge into the center of my archers, and they should be able to defend themselves in melee here. You see those pretty nasty looking spears they have hanging off their back. One point-blank charge, and a point-blank volley, managing to finish off that general's bodyguard. So I believe all the generals for Angmar are now dead. But morale in Reforged has never really been a big issue. Very few units will actually waver or rout, except for the really low tier stuff. And Angmar has no low tier stuff. Everything on the field is still high tier elite. They have the Witch Realm Pikemen left. They still have some of the Witch Realm Shadow Guard. So yeah, my cavalry force is starting to look very battered at this point. Very few numbers on both sides. It has been a torrid affair. The field just soaked with blood from both sides, littered with the bodies of the dead. Who can pull it out here? Who can take that final step, plunge towards victory? It's tough. It's a very tough fight. But seriously, dude, look at the number of the dead on the field as these Witch Realm Pikemen move up now. I'm trying to remember the last time I played a battle that was this quick and this bloody on 3rd Age Reforged. I mean, typically, when we're playing these scenarios on 3rd Age Reforged, they're like an hour and a half long, and yeah, there will be more troops on the field in those scenarios, but this is just all concentrated in a very small area, and so many dead, and they all died so fast. This is like a 30-minute replay, and it just piles and piles of dead on both sides. 97% of the Angmar army dead and decapitated, 93% of the Elven army dead and done. So both sides just completely demolished here as the Shadow Guard and the Gundabad Guard move up. And my Blade Masters, 2 of them that I just lost micro on because I didn't even realize they were alive. There are only 2 of them left, making their stand and quickly surrounded by the remnants of some of those elite Gundabad troops. One of them goes down here, stabbed in the back, and the other one, because I didn't give him an attack order, just kind of swings at air and then chills. You know what? I don't really feel like fighting anymore. I'm just going to hang out here. So the archers move up now, and this is really big for us, actually, because these guys are isolated, not very many of them left, and we do have some decent cavalry forces still around. So tie them down with the archers that have spears, so they can actually defend themselves in melee against cavalry, I believe. But then use that as the anvil as we charge in from both sides and finish off the infantry that's over here. So yeah, it looks like, oh, for sure, Elves are in the ascendancy at this point. No way Gundabad can go back. Where's their stuff? Well, actually, there are some units that we haven't seen yet, which will show up very soon. I'll have to go find them, that are still alive. And they'll be doing something a little bit cheeky, which is exactly what they should be doing, honestly, because out on the open field, you can see what's happening to these isolated units. They're all being just torn apart. As actually, one of these Shadow Guard got a good charge off and cut down one of my cavalrymen. Cavalry elves, rather. Let's take a look. What are they doing? They are moving to the edge of the mountain. Looks like 90 or so of those Witch Realm, Blackwatch Legion, rather, and then the Witch Realm Pikemen. And they're going to work in a big, scary formation that will be very hard to breach with cavalry because we have no infantry left. We just have the archers, and the archers can't beat them in melee. The 2 of those ranger units are firing in, getting some pot shots off. And now the funny thing about Medieval 2 is you don't lose ammo when you lose models. So if you only have 2 archers in a unit, they can actually fire the rest of the unit's ammo, which is kind of interesting. We have the general and his captain just finish off one of the remnants of the Angmar prisoners over in the center of the battlefield. But now we begin the long march towards the last stand of what was once a gigantic Gundabad army, now very much depleted. So are the Elves, and kind of dislodging them from this mountain formation will be very tough. They have their backs to a wall here. They have a pike line facing outwards. Cavalry can't charge that. They'll skewer themselves, and we're out of ammo. So we could have done something cheesy like have these 2 Wardens of Caravan just fire in for forever. That's boring. That's stupid. We're not going to do that. We're going to use the rest of our ammo here on my stuff, which I believe I have like a couple volleys left. And once that's out, we got to get into melee and finish them off. And we don't, I think I have like 1 volley each left on my horse archers and on my actual archers. So once that happens, the idea here, and what you have to do to kind of push out a pike from a formation like this, is to pretend like you want to engage and then quickly pull away and see if they try to get out of position with their pikes and move outwards so you can maybe get a charge in from another side. Because if the pikes aren't facing the right way, cavalry will still decimate them. So that's what we have to do. We have to pull them away from the safety of the mountaintop fortification little spot they're in right now and get some really good charges in from multiple angles. Thankfully, we do have some cavalry and some mobility in general that will help us do that. But not going to be easy if they play it right. We could lose an entire cav unit or more on a single charge, as we already saw has happened this game to the other side. It can be very dangerous. So charge in, quickly pull out when you see the pikes moving forward, and see if we can bait them out of formation. It's very close. Look at that balance bar, 50-50. This late in the game, with so many dead on both sides. And really, it's going to come down to how well Starling can move those pikes, how well J-Monster can support those pikes with his Blackwatch Legion. Wardens are still firing in from the flank. Little bit of puffs of blood, so they might still be getting a few kills here or there, at least doing a little bit of HP damage. And a few arrows, but here come the archers. They're being committed to melee now, and this is what we want to do. We want to have the infantry attack from one side. Cavalry can hopefully kind of finagle their way in behind the rock formation and get into the back of those pikes. Not going to be easy here, charging in. Those archers will get beaten, just have the crap beaten out of them, basically, by those Blackwatch Legion. No way they're going to win, but they don't need to. They just need to hold for a bit and give my cavalry time to move in. Of course, they realize this, and that's dangerous. That's not so good. Charge into pikes. They had them dropped there, and now they're dropping them again. You'll see our cavalry starting to take a lot of casualties because they've already taken a lot of HP damage over the course of this battle. When you do those repeated hammer and anvils, every single time you charge in, you will take HP damage, which will pay dividends in the later stages of the game. Cavalry taking a lot of losses now. You can see my very high tier cav is starting to drop. The captain just went down there. My banner bearer just went down there. My light cav is losing horribly. Things are looking really scary for both sides. Everyone's screaming in Discord like, who's going to win this game? It's really tough fighting. Even the Blackwatch Legion, with my cavalry being as depleted and exhausted as they are, won't die easily to cav charges. And we just have to keep hammering and anviling and keep hoping that they make a mistake. But both sides are being so beaten up. Another charge here. This time, they didn't drop their pikes in time. And we eviscerate that formation. The pikes are gone there. And that is why you cannot risk doing that kind of movement order with a pike. Because if they keep their pikes up, if they don't drop them in time, you just lose the pike unit when there are that few left. And with the pikes dead now, we can surround these Blackwatch Legion, get some hammer and anvils off, and hopefully put the seal on this deal. And yeah, that was perhaps a game-losing mistake there with the pikes. I think you're doing better off just keeping them still, not moving them, keeping their formation facing outwards, and maybe my cav would have made a mistake there, but just barely managed to finish them off. And with the remnants of the Horse Lords of Lune and my elves from the gay havens. I mean, yeah, I guess. The Grey Havens, the Gay Havens, whatever, dude. Whatever sexual preference you guys have, it's all good. But yeah, we... Gay Havens, Jesus Christ. We managed to win. And that was about as close as a battle can possibly get. I mean, look at that. There were about 25 cavalry left, maybe 30. And that was it. My infantry was dead. Everything else was dead. There were the 2 rangers and my 30 cav. And that was it. So let's look at the kills here. Insane battle. Synn of the Dark Cloud, who made the replay, had 3,600 kills. Or made the scenario, rather. I had 3,100. And Carandal had 2,200 or so. Looks like Cannon Fodder had 700, so he kind of got beat up. I think he made the right play in terms of pushing up forward with his army. But the problem was that he didn't get the support from Starling that he needed. But Starling actually played very well that game, I felt. Except for the way he used his wargs. His skirmishing and his infantry formation attack were very good. And then J-Monster won his 1v1, but it was very close on both sides. So, yeah, interesting fight. I mean, Synn got 625 kills on one of his cav units. I mean, that's a big reason why Cannon Fodder got so few kills. His cavalry support for me was fantastic. And then across the board, I mean, his Mythlon Marines, like 200, Harlingen Guard, 200. The archers and the Jav units themselves were great for killing trolls. They were great for killing the high armor targets. And basically, I think that we used some pretty good teamwork there to help win that battle. But I think it'd be really hard to say that that battle wasn't even in terms of army compositions. I think that actually Angmar might have had a slight advantage there, because I think it's sometimes easier to just overwhelm an opponent with melee units. And if they had maybe supported each other a little bit better there, I think they could have taken this game pretty easily. Because, I mean, we saw how close the battle was. Even with those mistakes, we barely won. Like, I think we all played pretty decently on our end, and we still barely pulled it out. So, quick call to action here. Thank you very much to the mod team, Kuroguro, Chanson, the Dark Cloud, and everyone else who's worked hard on making Third Age Reforged awesome. There are the Mod DB awards going on right now, and unfortunately, kind of limited turnaround in time in terms of when we played this scenario and when I was able to record it. By the time this video goes up, there will only be like 2 hours, maybe 3 hours left in terms of how much time you have left to vote for this mod on ModDB for the mod awards. But I think that it is one of the best mods I've ever played. Incredibly fun. If you like Third Age Reforged, if you like multiplayer content on Medieval 2, I recommend you guys go check it out and maybe think about giving them your vote. If not, there are a million other great mods out there that you can try and give your vote to if you feel like something else is more deserving. But I definitely recommend you guys go to ModDB right now and give whatever your favorite mod is a vote, and try to get whatever your favorite mod is to win the mod awards, because I don't know if there are prizes for that, but it'd be pretty awesome. It's certainly something awesome to put on your resume at the very least. Also, in the pinned comment, I'll leave you the link to where you can vote and the Discord for Reforged. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Indie Pride, signing out for now.